Alright then, so moving on from the last video where we explored the different lifecycle hooks we have available to us, I want to take a deeper dive now into this one right here, created. Now, I said that this was a good hook to go out and get some external data, and it is. That's what we're going to do in this video. What we'll be doing is using this JSON placeholder website to go out and get some data from it, return it to our component, and then display it in our template. So this website here is really good. It has a load of different endpoints we can use to go out and grab data. I'm going to use this one right here, so /posts. So I'll copy that. And this link up here, what I'll do is attach this to this video so you can go and use this as well. Now, what we'll do is grab that data inside this created hook right here. Now, to go out and grab that data, we're going to need some kind of Ajax library. We could use the native fetch API, but I don't want to do that. What I would like to do is use Axios, but it's up to you what you use. So the first thing we need to do is install Axios. It's a separate package. So we'll open up a terminal and make sure you're in my project right here, this directory, and we'll say npm install Axios. Now, depending on what version of npm you have installed, you might need to pass through the save flag like so. If you have npm 5 or later, then you shouldn't need to do this, but it's always good just to pass the save flag anyway, just in case. So this is going to grab Axios and install it into our project so that all the files go into the node modules folder. Alright, so once that's installed, cross off your terminal and we'll go inside this created lifecycle hook. Now, the way we use Axios is by saying Axios and then .get. And this will perform a GET request to go and get some data. Now, the data we want to get is this thing we just copied. So JSON placeholder.typecode.com/posts. This endpoint will provide us with some JSON data, which is basically dummy posts. Now, we've used Axios here, but we've not actually imported Axios into this file. So let's do that as well. We'll import Axios from Axios. Okay, so remember that is living in node modules. When we do this, it knows to go and grab that module. So now we have access to this Axios object, which we're using down here. So we're saying, okay, go and get this data. Now, what Axios does is return to us a promise. Now, if you're unfamiliar about promises, there's a video on promises in the last section down here, the bonus section, where I go over a few different ES6 features. But in a nutshell, this thing right here, this request takes some time to complete. It has to go out, get the data and come back. Now, what a promise does is allow us to tack on a then method, which will fire when this action is complete. So when we get the data back, this then method will fire and it takes in a response object. Now, I'm just going to return this to a new line so we can see it better. And this is going to be an ES6 arrow function. And inside this arrow function, we can take this response data and do something with it. So let's just look what it is first of all. We'll say console.log response. Okay, so let's save that and view this in a browser. Of course, we still need to run the development server. So I'll open up my terminal and I'll say npm run dev to spin up that local development server first of all. Okay, and now this should work if I go and refresh. So we refresh and now we can see this thing right here, this object that we get back. And inside this object, we have all this data inside the data property. You can see all of these different dummy blocks. So now we can use this data to output it to the component. Okay, so how do we do that exactly? Well, what we'll do to begin with is create a property inside our data called posts. And we'll just set this equal to an empty array to begin with. Now, what we'd like to do is take the post data from this response and inject it into this array, into this posts property. So what we'll do is we'll just say this.posts is equal to response, and it was the data property. Remember, when we looked at this in the console, it was on a data property in that response object. There's the object. Here is the data property. So we want to grab this array and set it equal to this thing right here, or vice versa. Take this posts data and set it equal to the data array. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We're updating this thing right here with the response data. So now what we can do is we can cycle through this data over here in the template and output those different posts. So let us do now a div over here, and this will be a v4 because we want to cycle through the data. So we'll say v-4, set that equal to post in posts. Okay, we also need a key. Remember, we need to do a bit of data binding because each element that Vue outputs needs a key for Vue to identify it. So we'll do data binding, then key is equal to something. Now, previously when we did this, what we did is grab the index from the post, but this time on this data object over here, we have an ID. You can see each object has an ID. So we could use that as the key, which is what we'll do. So we'll say we'll grab the post, which we're currently cycling through. We define that here. Then the ID property. All right, so now we have the key sorted. Inside the loop, what we'll do is output a title, which is in a H3, and that will be the post.title property. We can see that over here. We have the post title right there. And if we go a bit to the right, we can see we have body content as well, the post.body. So let's output that underneath. We'll do a p tag and we'll say post.body. All right, so let's save this now. We can get rid of the console. We don't need that anymore. And now we can see that when the component loads onto the page, we have all of this data output. So in the created method, what we're doing is we're grabbing all of this data using Axios. Then when that data returns to us, we're updating this posts property right here with that data. Then we're cycling through that post data inside our template, and we're outputting the title and the body for each different post. Okay, so that's typically how we could use the created lifecycle hook to go out and grab some data, return it to our component, and update our template. Now, just one quick little thing before we go on. This right here, this, like I said, takes some time to go out and complete. When it's done and it's successful, this then function fires and fires back this callback ES6 function with the response. Now, what if this here is unsuccessful? Well, when it returns a promise, what we can do is we can tack on a catch method as well. And this catch method will take any kind of error object as a parameter into this ES6 arrow function. So what we could do is just console.log the error. So if this was posts with 2 S's, that doesn't exist, that endpoint. So let's save this and see what happens. Now we don't see those blogs on the screen, and if we view the console, now we can say we get this error right here. Request failed with status code 404. All right, so we can do something with this error. We could add some kind of response message to the user in the template if this existed, this error, okay? So just to let you know, we can have a then and a catch method on this thing right here.